Dear brothers and sisters, imagine starting your day with a moment so powerful that it can change the course of your entire life. A moment when the angels themselves are present and the mercy of Allah descends. That moment is the Fajr prayer. And today, I want to talk to you about a habit, something so simple, yet so transformative, that if you embrace it, you will see your sustenance, your rizq, expand in ways beyond your imagination. And the key is three simple things before or during Fajr. First, wake up early for Fajr consistently. Not once in a while, not when it's convenient, but make it a habit. The Quran says establish prayer at the two ends of the day and at the approaches of the night. Indeed, good deeds erase bad deeds. Surah Hud, when you make this commitment, you are telling Allah, my Lord, I trust you with my time, my life, and my sustenance. And Allah promises that He is the provider of all that you need. Second, pray with sincerity and presence of heart. Do not rush. Do not let the mind wander. Feel every word, every movement. Know that Allah is watching and He hears even the whisper of your heart. Mindfulness attracts blessings because when your connection is sincere, Allah opens the doors of rizq, sometimes in ways you cannot see immediately but will benefit from endlessly. Third, make a short morning dua for sustenance. And after Fajr, spend a few minutes asking Allah for halal rizq, for ease in your work, and for guidance. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, the supplication of the morning is not rejected. This dua, combined with your discipline, your sincerity, and your early rising, becomes a magnet for blessings. Dear friends, it is amazing how Allah can expand your rizq instantly, not always in money alone, but in opportunities, in health, in guidance, in peace of mind, and in the love of people around you. You will notice that doors open, tasks become easier, and your heart becomes lighter. So I urge you, start today. Make these three Fajr habits a part of your life. Wake up, pray with heart, and make dua. Watch how Allah's mercy descends, how your rizq increases, and how your life transforms. Remember, the blessings of Fajr are not just in the prayer itself. They are in the consistency, the sincerity, and the connection to Allah. Let this habit be your secret to a life of abundance. And may Allah make it easy for us, grant us steadfastness, and open for us the doors of rizq in ways we never imagined. Ameen. The spiritual discipline of Fajr prayer begins with the act of waking up in the early hours before sunrise. This is not merely a physical effort, but a profound exercise in self-control, intention, and submission to Allah. Waking up at a time when the world is still asleep requires a conscious choice to prioritize one's connection with the Creator over comfort or sleep. It is in these moments of stillness and quiet that a believer has the opportunity to align their heart and mind with the divine. The early hours, known as the time of Fajr, are unique because Allah's mercy descends at that time, and the angels are present, listening to the prayers and supplications of those who rise for worship. Establishing the habit of waking up consistently for Fajr instills a rhythm in one's life that goes beyond prayer. It shapes character, discipline, and a sense of spiritual purpose. Son, the essence of this discipline lies not only in waking up, but also in cultivating a deep awareness of the sacredness of time. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized the importance of Fajr by highlighting the spiritual rewards associated with it. He mentioned that the 2 rak'ahs units of prayer before Fajr are better than the entire world, illustrating the immense value placed on this act of devotion. This encourages believers to view the early hours not as a time for struggle or sacrifice, but as a period rich with spiritual opportunity. When one rises for Fajr regularly, the mind begins to associate these hours with mindfulness, reflection, and connection with Allah, rather than fatigue or routine obligation. The discipline, therefore, is as much mental and spiritual as it is physical, fostering a habit that gradually transforms the believer's daily outlook. Consistency in performing Fajr prayer also develops patience and resilience. In a world filled with distractions, sleep deprivation, and competing demands, committing to Fajr requires a conscious effort to resist laziness and prioritize spiritual obligations. This consistent effort strengthens one's character and reinforces the principle that true success and sustenance come from obedience to Allah, not from comfort or convenience. Over time, this habit teaches the believer that spiritual rewards, including guidance, blessings, and provision, are closely tied to persistence and sincerity. It is through repeated practice that the heart becomes accustomed to turning to Allah at the start of the day, creating a sense of inner peace and stability that carries throughout all other activities. Fajr prayer serves as a gateway to spiritual awareness and reflection. The early morning hours are naturally quiet, allowing a believer to focus their attention on Allah without distraction. This period of solitude encourages contemplation, self-assessment, and the opportunity to set one's intentions for the day in a manner aligned with divine guidance. When performed with mindfulness, Fajr becomes more than an obligatory prayer. It becomes a powerful tool for spiritual growth, a moment to purify one's heart, and a reminder of the temporary nature of worldly life. The act of leaving the warmth of one's bed to seek Allah cultivates humility, gratitude, and a heightened sense of purpose, all of which are essential components of spiritual discipline. The discipline of Fajr also extends its influence to other areas of life. Those who maintain this habit often find that their days begin with clarity, focus, and motivation. Early rising provides additional time for reflection, planning, and performing other acts of worship or productive work. The structure imposed by this routine gradually fosters organization and prioritization, making it easier to approach daily responsibilities with diligence and sincerity. In this way, the spiritual discipline of Fajr intersects with personal development and shaping not only the believer's relationship with Allah, but also their character, habits, and productivity in worldly matters. The spiritual discipline of Fajr is intrinsically linked to the believer's trust in Allah. Waking up before dawn, often at the expense of comfort and rest, demonstrates reliance on Allah for strength, guidance, and sustenance. It is an acknowledgement that success and blessings do not solely come from human effort, but are granted by Allah to those who seek Him sincerely. By consistently performing Fajr, a believer cultivates a lifestyle centered on divine obedience, mindfulness, and accountability, creating a foundation upon which other spiritual and worldly blessings are built. The habit, though simple in appearance, carries profound implications for both the soul and the practical aspects of life, making it one of the most powerful disciplines a believer can cultivate. The blessings of consistency in worship are among the most profound yet often overlooked aspects of a believer's spiritual journey. Performing acts of worship regularly, even if they seem small or repetitive, creates a continuous link between the servant and Allah. Consistency in prayer, remembrance, and good deeds signals to Allah that the believer is sincere and devoted, and this sincerity unlocks immense. One of the key aspects of consistent worship is its cumulative effect. Small, repeated acts accumulate to produce outcomes far greater than sporadic, intense efforts. This is why the Prophet, peace be upon him, emphasized that Allah loves deeds that are performed regularly, even if they are few. When a believer commits to a routine of worship, such as daily prayers, Zikr, and voluntary acts of devotion, they are building a foundation of spiritual strength that directly attracts Allah's mercy and blessings. Consistency also instills a sense of reliability in one's relationship with Allah. Just as a person values trustworthiness in human relationships, Allah rewards the consistent connection of His servants. Regular worship is a demonstration of commitment and discipline, reflecting a heart that prioritizes spiritual obligations over fleeting desires or worldly distractions. The discipline developed through consistency helps believers withstand challenges and distractions, keeping them anchored in their faith. These regular acts of devotion become a shield against spiritual negligence and complacency, reminding the believer that their connection with Allah is ongoing, not occasional. Over time, this consistent effort nurtures a deep-seated spiritual awareness, shaping the character and decisions of the believer in every aspect of life. Another significant aspect of consistent worship is its effect on rizq, or sustenance. Allah promises to bless those who maintain regular acts of devotion, and this includes both spiritual and material provisions. The connection between consistent worship and the expansion of rizq is mentioned in various narrations, where steadfastness in prayer, zikr, and other good deeds attracts divine favor. When a believer performs worship consistently, it demonstrates reliance on Allah, humility, and gratitude, all of which are keys to unlocking blessings. This does not always manifest immediately in visible wealth, but it often opens doors to opportunities, ease in livelihood, and guidance in making choices that lead to barakah. The effects of consistency are often subtle but profound, gradually transforming the believer's life in ways that sudden, sporadic worship cannot achieve. Consistency also strengthens the believer's spiritual and mental resilience. Repeated, regular acts of devotion train the mind and heart to remain focused on Allah, even during difficult times. It instills patience, perseverance, and trust, as the believer learns that reward and blessings may not always be immediate, but Allah never neglects a sincere effort. Discipline also reinforces gratitude, as the habit of daily worship reminds the believer to constantly acknowledge Allah's countless favors. Each act of consistent devotion becomes a reinforcement of faith, a reminder of divine mercy, and a source of hope. Over time, these repeated actions cultivate inner peace, reduce anxiety, and enhance a sense of purpose, as the believer experiences firsthand the stabilizing effect of a routine centered on worship. Consistent worship encourages reflection and self-improvement. When performed regularly, acts of devotion offer frequent opportunities for the believer to evaluate their intentions, correct mistakes, and realign their goals with Allah's guidance. This ongoing self-assessment cultivates humility and prevents spiritual stagnation. Each act, whether it is a prayer, zikr, or charity, becomes a step in a continuous journey of refinement, making the believer more mindful, compassionate, and ethically conscious. The repetition inherent in consistency also helps internalize moral and spiritual values, embedding them deeply into daily life. Over time, this internalization shapes behavior, speech, and interactions with others, creating a holistic transformation that touches both spiritual and worldly domains. Consistency in worship serves as a testimony to the power of discipline and intention in faith. Even when faced with fatigue, distraction, or hardship, maintaining regular acts of devotion demonstrates a deep commitment to spiritual growth. This constancy attracts divine favor, strengthens faith, and ensures that the believer's life is enveloped in barakah. It also sets an example for others, showing that spiritual growth is not about occasional effort, but about their heartfelt dedication. The blessings that flow from such persistence are comprehensive, encompassing guidance, protection, opportunities, and sustenance, all rooted in the believer's unwavering connection to Allah. Through consistent worship, the believer cultivates a life of balance, fulfillment, and divine favor, revealing that the true power of devotion lies not in occasional intensity, but in persistent sincerity. The practical effects of performing Fajr consistently extend far beyond the spiritual realm, influencing every aspect of a believer's daily life. One of the most immediate benefits is the development of a disciplined routine. Rising early to pray Fajr instills a sense of order and structure that naturally carries into other daily activities. When a person starts the day intentionally, aligning the first moments with worship, it sets a tone of mindfulness and purpose for the hours that follow. This routine promotes punctuality, time management, and focus as the believer becomes accustomed to prioritizing the most important tasks, both spiritual and worldly. The discipline cultivated through Fajr often translates into improved productivity and efficiency in work, study, or personal responsibilities, as the early morning habit teaches the mind to act deliberately rather than reactively. Another practical effect is mental clarity and heightened focus. The quiet and stillness of the early hours provide an environment free from distractions, allowing the mind to engage fully with prayer and reflection. This focused beginning often leads to greater concentration throughout the day, as the brain benefits from having started in a calm, intentional state. Scientific studies on early risers also indicate that waking before dawn can improve cognitive function and alertness. In the context of Fajr, this natural advantage is amplified by the spiritual dimension of worship, which nourishes both the heart and mind. The combination of tranquility, discipline, and purpose fosters sharper decision-making, better problem-solving, and a more balanced approach to challenges faced during the day. Consistency in Fajr also impacts emotional well-being. Starting the day with prayer instills a sense of gratitude, humility, and inner peace. The act of turning to Allah before engaging with the world reinforces a mindset of reliance and trust, reducing anxiety and stress associated with worldly pressures. When the believer begins the day with remembrance, they carry a calm and positive outlook, even in the face of difficulties. This emotional stability influences interactions with others, leading to improved relationships, greater patience, and a more compassionate demeanor. The habit of Fajr strengthens emotional resilience, providing a steady foundation from which one can navigate life's uncertainties with grace and confidence. Performing Fajr consistently nurtures self-control and intentional living. The effort required to wake early, leave the comfort of one's bed, and engage in focused worship cultivates a habit of prioritizing long-term benefits over immediate gratification. This self-discipline often spills over into other areas such as health, finances, and personal development. Believers who maintain this habit frequently exhibit better organization, goal setting, and the ability to resist distractions that could derail progress. The internalized discipline becomes a tool for achieving success in both spiritual and worldly endeavors, demonstrating the profound interplay between devotion and practical life management. The habit of Fajr also encourages proactive planning and reflection. After the prayer, the early hours can be used for setting intentions, making dua, and contemplating the tasks ahead. This proactive approach reduces the likelihood of hasty or reactive decisions later in the day. It allows the believer to align their actions with values and long-term objectives, ensuring that their daily choices are purposeful rather than impulsive. Over time, this practice fosters strategic thinking, clarity of priorities, and a sense of mastery over one's life. By consistently engaging with the day's potential before it begins, the believer experiences a heightened sense of control and direction, which is directly tied to the spiritual grounding provided by Fajr. Another practical effect is the increased likelihood of seizing opportunities. Those who wake early are often more productive and alert, making them better positioned to recognize and act upon opportunities in work, education, or personal growth. The discipline and focus cultivated through Fajr enhance awareness and readiness, which can result in tangible improvements in livelihood, relationships, and personal achievements. When combined with sincere dua for sustenance, this practical readiness creates a powerful synergy between effort and divine blessing, demonstrating that the benefits of Fajr are both spiritual and practical in nature. The habit of Fajr prayer fosters a lifestyle of balance and holistic well-being. It integrates spiritual devotion, mental clarity, emotional stability, and physical discipline into a single daily routine. The cumulative effect of these factors creates a rhythm in life that supports sustained personal growth, increased productivity, and the practical benefits are not just temporary, they compound over time, shaping a life of purpose, resilience, and blessing. By consistently performing Fajr, the believer experiences how a simple spiritual practice can influence and elevate every facet of daily existence, linking devotion directly to practical, tangible improvements in life. Faith in Allah's promise is the cornerstone of all spiritual transformation, especially when it comes to acts of devotion such as Fajr prayer, your prayer. Believing firmly that Allah is the provider, the sustainer, and the all-knowing allows the believer to engage in worship with complete trust and expectation. This faith is not passive. It actively shapes the mindset and actions of the believer. When one performs Fajr prayer consistently, coupled with heartfelt dua for sustenance and guidance, it reflects a deep reliance on Allah's promise that He will open doors of rizq and blessings in ways beyond human calculation. This trust transforms the believer's perspective on effort and reward, teaching that while one must strive diligently, ultimate success rests in Allah's hands. The immediacy of transformation lies not always in visible material gain, but in the alignment of the heart, mind, and life with divine will, which in itself brings profound change. Faith in Allah's promise encourages patience and perseverance. Often, the fruits of worship are not immediately apparent, and the believer may feel discouraged if they only focus on worldly results. Understanding that Allah rewards sincerity, consistency, and devotion instills resilience. The promise of divine support creates a mindset where challenges are seen as temporary obstacles rather than permanent setbacks. This faith also fosters hope and optimism, as the believer knows that every sincere effort, no matter how small, contributes to a greater outcome. The immediate transformation occurs in the way one views life. A heart filled with trust in Allah becomes calmer, more focused, and less anxious, which in turn attracts opportunities, guidance, and blessings that may not have been visible before. The psychological and spiritual shift itself is a form of instant rizq. This faith also nurtures proactive engagement with life. Believing in Allah's promise inspires the believer to take meaningful actions without fear of failure or disappointment. Performing Fajr prayer, making dua, and seeking guidance in the early hours creates a spiritual momentum that carries throughout the day. The confidence gained from trusting in Allah's promise encourages the believer to approach work, relationships, and personal goals with clarity and determination. This proactive mindset often leads to tangible improvements in livelihood and life. Circumstances because the believer combines sincere effort with reliance on divine intervention. The synergy of action and faith demonstrates that trust in Allah's promise does not encourage passivity, but rather motivates consistent, purpose-driven effort. Faith in Allah's promise also reshapes the believer's understanding of rizq. Sustenance is not limited to material wealth. It encompasses health, opportunities, knowledge, guidance, and inner peace. When one trusts Allah to provide, the believer begins to notice blessings in subtle ways that were previously overlooked. The immediacy of transformation is often experienced in the heart and mind before it manifests externally. For instance, clarity in decision-making, increased energy, reduced worry, and a sense of purpose are forms of immediate rizq that result directly from faith and devotion. These blessings create a fertile environment for other forms of rizq to flow naturally, illustrating the profound connection between spiritual trust and tangible outcomes in life. Another key aspect of this faith is the power of expectation and positive anticipation. Why? The believer who trusts Allah's promise approaches each day with hope and readiness to receive divine blessings. This expectation itself changes behavior, making one more alert to opportunities, more diligent in effort, and more mindful in interactions. Immediate transformation occurs as the believer begins to notice small positive changes that compound over time. A decision that once seemed difficult becomes manageable. An opportunity that seemed hidden becomes visible. And challenges are approached with composure rather than panic. Faith, therefore, functions as both a spiritual anchor and a practical catalyst for life-changing results. Faith in Allah's promise also strengthens the consistency of worship. When a believer truly trusts that Allah will honor their devotion, they are more motivated to maintain regular acts of worship like Fajr prayer, Zikr, and dua. This creates a positive feedback loop. Faith encourages action, action reinforces consistency, and consistency draws more blessings. Immediate transformation can often be felt in increased spiritual energy, heightened mindfulness, and a growing sense of peace and contentment. The believer experiences firsthand that the fulfillment of divine promises is not always delayed, even small. Consistent acts performed with sincere faith can lead to noticeable shifts in one's circumstances and inner state. Faith in Allah's promise allows the believer to navigate life with a sense of divine partnership. The realization that Allah is aware of every effort, every intention, and every struggle provides comfort and courage. This partnership transforms daily life, making the believer more patient, resilient, and proactive. When combined with the habit of Fajr prayer, the believer experiences immediate spiritual and practical transformation. The heart feels lighter, the mind clearer, and the soul aligned with divine will. Trust in Allah's promise is thus not an abstract concept. It is a living, dynamic force that converts devotion into tangible blessings, instant guidance, and a life enriched with barakah in every sphere.